Why should a filmmaker submit to film festivals?
I think film festivals are great at connecting films to audience. That being said, not every film is a film festival film. And I've actually worked with a number of them and who get depressed because my film's not in a festival, what's wrong with me in a sense. And filmmakers need to understand that there's certain kinds of films that film festivals tend to program. There's a variety of different kinds of festivals. So there's sales festivals or A-level sales festivals. Then there's regional festivals, and then there's a slew of niche festivals. Like there's LGBTQA plus festivals. There's Black film festivals, Latino film festivals, Asian American film festivals, there's documentary film festivals, there's all kinds of human rights film festivals. Unfortunately, one of the biggest human rights festivals just shuttered recently. But there's a whole slew of different kinds of film festivals. So part of it is understanding what your film is and what festivals your film might be appropriate for, but in aligning those. But then also some films just aren't festival films. So we worked on a film, we're still working on a film called Keys, Bags, Names, Words, which is a film about Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's a bit of a survey film, so it follows a lot of different characters. And it also deals with an older population, and both of which aren't necessarily always embraced by film festivals. And especially survey documentaries tend to not be films that generally do well at festivals, depending. I mean, Vomit was a survey film, and that did fine. But so they were struggling with film festivals when they came to me, and I said, "Well, your film doesn't feel like a festival film necessarily." But that doesn't mean that your film's not a great film and that there's not an audience for your film. And we ended up, I think we're up at 170 screenings in over 30 countries now. And because it's a matter of identifying who the audience is, engaging with that audience, and making that connection. And that's why I think that, even films that are struggling on the film festival circuit, there's a path for them.
Yeah, because I've seen older audiences at certain festivals, much older audience. But was this more for like a clinical audience?
No,
No?
it's embraced by, and it could be because it was combined that it was also a survey film, and so. I mean, I don't have the answers of why. And then ultimately I think it ended up getting into 3 festivals, because I think also it got into some social justice festivals and some healthcare festivals, which they had not been previously applying to. So I think that was also part of it. But it's just, for whatever it is, for whatever reason, it, didn't take. And it could be, I lay out a couple things in terms of survey and, older audience and yes, a lot of festivals do have older audiences and will play films for an older audience. But so that, what I just said people could say the opposite. There could be comments, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. We're at this festival here and we play films for all age groups. So nothing I'm saying is, well, there are a few things I'm saying that are absolutes, but a lot of things I'm saying are not absolutes, and they're just like on a spectrum. And ultimately, the absolute in this case is that there are films that are quite good that just aren't suited that festivals just aren't taking that year. It could be. Maybe in 3 years, festivals would have run to that film, but there's something about a certain zeitgeist that happens that just, for some films, there's a disconnect.
And just to reiterate, you've said that when your film is at a festival, you are in distribution.
Yes, definitely.
But it's sort of a self-distribution in a sense, because you've paid to be at the festival.
But I don't make distinctions about self or non-self distribution. Like, I feel like that's not a major factor to me. And you might not be. Some films are able to have a festival consultant on board who's booking, or a festival booker who's booking their films. There aren't that many of them, and they do sometimes cost money, and not that many films have that attribute. But that's a case of films that are not self-engaging in festivals in a self manner. But just like any aspect of distribution, yes, you could have a booker do something or a distributor handle something. Like foreign sales agents will tend to handle festivals for films, and it's a revenue stream. And so that's clearly an example of how festivals are, if you're in festivals, you're in distribution. But even on the, as you say, the self side, I'm just saying this because most filmmakers, when they're in festivals, I say maybe many or most filmmakers don't realize they're in distribution. And I still have filmmakers who write to me and say, well, I'm in festivals, or I'm nearing the end of my festival run, and now I want to engage distribution. And it's like, dude, you've been in distribution. And the reason I say that is because there's things that you should be doing during that process that will aid the rest of the distribution for your film.
And that was my next follow-up, is that so many films get a great exposure at a festival and then they just disappear. How do we prevent this from happening?
Well, it's so funny because there's a thing that just came out called the Popcorn List, which was an initiative by a couple of very wonderful people who run the Art House Convergence and the Film Festival Alliance, which polled festivals from around, I think mostly only the United States, like what films did you love last year that don't have distribution? And it's a pretty long list. And you prevent that by having the filmmakers understand the distribution and marketing process, going in with a plan, understanding that festivals are part of the distribution, and they have to plan out the rest of their release that incorporates the festivals, that they have to understand that festivals are only one part of it, and it's not, they have to be in there for the long game and not just think that festivals are it. Some filmmakers might be fine. Look, we played in 10 festivals, we're done, like we're happy, but I doubt there's that many of those festivals. I doubt that there's that many of those filmmakers out there.
Is the festival acquisition model still relevant?
I think for a little bit. That's what's mostly broken. When people talk about the broken landscape, that's kind of what they're talking about. And so sales did pick up at Sundance this year. There were some sales, but you have to understand that Sundance gets 4,000 feature submissions, of which 80 get in. I think the time I ran the numbers, I think it's 1%. It's like you have a better chance of getting into Harvard, if that's any kind of metric, than your film getting into Sundance. And that's only of films that's submitted. There's probably 30,000 other films floating around trying to do something with their film every year, maybe 50,000. There's been different statistics over the years. And so, if you have anywhere from 20 to 50,000 films not getting into sales film festivals, that to me has indicated for the last 15 years, the sales acquisition model has been broken. And so even on a year, if say every film at Sundance sold, it's still broken, because it's still broken for 90% of films or 95% of films. But there's that, going back to, there's that illusion that it's not broken, that there's a functional ecosystem for all films, which goes back to what I was saying before, that people view the system as broken now as a new thing, and it's not a new thing. It's been broken for most films for at least 15 years. And the good news about this happening now and being a bigger crisis is that more people in more positions to do something about it are doing something about it. So that's good.